Hi, I'm Trisha Bantigue, CEO and co-founder of Queenly, and I'm interviewing with the Pageant Project.
Hey everyone, it's Adrian with you from the Pageant Project, and my very special guest for today is Trisha Bantigue, who is CEO of Queenly. Trisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Adrian. This is really fun. Glad to be here.
Can we start with whereabouts you are? Because I was reading through all the stuff about Queenly, including the interviews or the press, and there's so much to go through there.
Oh,
I saw San Francisco in there somewhere. So are you based in San Francisco?
yeah. So currently, our Queenly HQ, which is right here, is in San Francisco. It's where I work.
Perfect. Okay. So guys, I can see a bunch of you have jumped on already. So if you have any questions for Trisha about Queenly or about anything else, her entrepreneurial journey, or even how to find something on Queenly, let me know. Put them in the comments and I'll pass them on. So Ava, who is over here in Australia, Trisha, has said, hello, happy Friday. And to give you an idea, it's 6:30 in the morning here. So
Oh my
hello.
goodness! Wow, you're a morning bird, aren't you?
Well, I have to be. Often this is actually a bit later. Normally I'm on at 6 in the morning. So this is a little bit more,
Gotcha.
a little bit more. I don't know how to say it. But Trisha, let's just get started with, I normally start interviews, because obviously I'm interviewing pageant queens, with their pageant journey. And my understanding is that you have a pageant journey of your own. So can you let the audience know how you got involved with the crazy world of pageantry to begin with?
Yeah, my journey is definitely very unconventional, I would say. But so for me personally, I come from a very low income immigrant background. And so I've had to really start working and had to make money in order to survive and pay the bills at a very young age. And so when I got accepted to UC Berkeley, which is an amazing school, I realized that the out-of-state tuition fee was really a skyrocketing fee, if I may say. And I really wanted to fight for my spot because I worked my butt off in high school to get good grades, extracurriculars, and to be accepted at a #1 public university was even an honor. And so I was independent at the age of 17, and that means like I had no parental support. Most of my family is actually in the Philippines. And so I moved from Las Vegas to Berkeley, California in order to go to college. My first week there, they were just like, oh, I think you probably have to drop out and go to community college because there's this huge discrepancy between your financial aid and also your out-of-state tuition fee. And I was left with less than 2 weeks to basically figure it out. I took on a bunch of part-time jobs and did a lot of mobile phone research studies that I found on Craigslist and just became very scrappy in that sense. And one of the opportunities that I found and that I researched was that pageant organizations are actually one of the biggest scholarship givers in the US. I can't say for the rest of the world, but yeah, and I think this was like very shocking because to most people, they don't see pageants as that, right? As something that is positive and academically beneficial. And so in 2013, I joined my very first pageant. It's called Miss Global. Yeah, and that was the very first year actually of doing the pageant. And so it was in LA. And I thought to myself, well, why not? I've never done this before, and I never thought I would be a pageant girl. But they were telling me that my fee was going to be sponsored. For some reason, it was like Paul Mitchell that was sponsoring it. And I was like, okay, well, all I have to do is pay for my flight and find the gown. And it's like a 1-week free vacation at the Hilton. And so I went there, first day of orientation. I was completely blown away by just like the caliber of women there. And this is me at 18 years old, meaning this is me no pageant experience. I didn't know how to do my makeup, didn't know how to walk, anything. And I saw these women that were 24, 25 years old, more experienced. They had like a full glam face on. And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Like, I don't think I belong here. And I just had my makeup was a cheap eyeliner, drugstore eyeliner, and powder and lip gloss, and that was it. And my outfits were just, yeah, they were just not great.
Yeah.
And I used my prom dress for my evening gown, but I told myself, you know what? I'm already here, and I'm just gonna be a sponge. This whole week, I'm gonna be a sponge, and I'm gonna learn from every single woman here. And my experience there pretty much broke every stereotype that I had about the pageant industry. Because I think, like most people, I thought pageants were just like, the whole Miss Congeniality movie or Toddlers
Yeah.
in Tiara. But the women that I met there were one of the most talented, intelligent, and capable women that I've ever met. And they were also kind hearted and very passionate about their social causes, that it inspired me so much to the point where, even though I lost, I mean, I didn't really care. I knew I was going to lose, but
Yeah.
but I made great friends. Yeah, and then I moved on to my next pageant, and then the next one, and then the next one. But my next pageant after that, I actually ended up winning, which was great. And then I kept going. I just loved the thrill, the experience, the friendships that I made, and how each year I got better. So that was my beginning of my pageant journey.
And genuine pageant girl right there. Trisha, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have Filipino heritage. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was actually born in the Philippines. My mom's side is Filipino, but my dad's side is like Chinese blood, but they were like raised in the Philippines. And I proved it because I did 23andMe. So I'm like, okay, I am part Chinese. But yeah.
I just find it fascinating that you have Filipino heritage and you never considered really going into pageants because out of everyone in the world, the Filipinos are probably the most passionate about pageants.
It's so funny because when I was growing up, so I lived in the Philippines up until the age of 10. And in the Philippines, I was, as a kid, I was a very tomboyish, rebellious
Mhm.
little girl. And so I always liked to play outside, even though I was raised by my grandparents. They always told me that, oh, stay inside because like you're gonna get darker, and like the whole Asian stereotypes of like light skin,
Yeah.
not light skin. But as a kid, I had really tan, dark skin because I like to play outside. Um, but then it's like the whole culture of making fun of girls and women that had darker skin tones and making them feel less beautiful, and they would I guess other people that would visit us or whatever would say that, and my family would always say, don't mind them, like, this is, black is beautiful, this and that,
Mhm.
and your skin tone's beautiful. And the example that they made was, I think it was Miss Universe Philippines. Oh my goodness, I think it's 90
It's
something,
okay.
and her name's
Yeah.
like Miriam Kiambao. I think it's 99. But
Okay.
she looked like me. She had a darker skin tone, she was skinny, and etc. And they would tell me, look at her, like she's considered a black beauty queen or something like that in like
Mhm.
Tagalog. And I never really considered it, because I never saw myself as beautiful. I knew I liked school, I knew I was smart, and I liked, pursuing ambitions when it comes to like career, but I never saw myself as a pageant girl growing up.
It's funny you mentioned that because I've interviewed a lot of girls who growing up were teased for their appearance. So, for example, girls who were very tall
Mhm.
or who had red hair. And then, for example, yourself with, wanting, everyone telling you that you should have pale skin, but you're naturally tanned. And
Mhm.
then later on in life, those very same things they were being teased
Oh
for
my goodness.
turned
Yeah.
out to be exactly what other people or other industries wanted. For example, being tall and standing out is great for the modeling industry. And then
Hmm.
everyone in the pageant world is spending so much on fake tan. And I often joke because I tan very much as well. It's like I've never needed fake tan. All you guys need all this fake tan. I mean, have you found this? Because I know also looking through the Queenly site that inclusivity, I mean, coming from an immigrant background, I can imagine this is important to you. But inclusivity for what you guys are doing has to be a huge component and something that's very
Hmm.
important to you as well.
It definitely is. And I want to point out that we also really care about like intersectionality when it comes to inclusivity, because I think this is something that is largely ignored in the fashion industry, where they think that, let's say a big fashion brand is casting models for a photo shoot campaign, and they think one Black model or one Latina model, whatever it may be, is enough. And then
Yeah.
in a sea of like 20 other like white models, right?
Mm.
But they forget to think about, there's a whole demographic of plus size women, there's a whole demographic of LGBTQ women, of beautiful trans women, Asian women, and this is something that I really want to focus on. As a matter of fact, like, I made it my goal to make sure that our first photo shoot campaign, so that was like super low budget because we're a startup, I made sure that it was diverse, that we had an Asian model, that we had a trans model. And these are things that I always want to keep in mind, because if these big fashion brands are not going to do it, then who will, right?
Exactly. Well said. Now, just before we dive into the startup component and the entrepreneurial part of it, let me just bring you up to date with a comment here. So, Ava, who I mentioned before, over here in Australia, Queenly is amazing. The website is unreal. My mum and I actually spent ages on your website looking for a dress for
Oh,
me. Best resale website and so many designers.
oh
So there
my
you go.
goodness, thank you. That means a lot to me, just because blood, sweat, and tears, like building Queenly from the ground. Thank
Yeah,
you.
literally blood, sweat, and
Yeah.
tears. I did want to try and jump on the app to have a play with it, but it's not available in Australia
Oh
yet,
no, I'm so
Trisha. So,
sorry. One day.
well, yeah, no, I was just like, why can't I download it here? But the website, and I will bring it up just in case you guys don't know, you're watching this on the replay, you don't know what we're talking about. So, this is the website for Queenly over here. I'll just bring it up, Trisha, and you should be able to see it as
Mhm.
well. I'm at the bottom, I was just looking at the investors. But if we go through to Queenly, and there's so many things I want to ask you, but this is up here. Uh, I guess importantly, Trisha, will this bring up the same results that are in the app? This will be off the same database
Yeah,
addresses,
so
am I correct?
everything, yeah, same listing, same data.
Right. So, and this is one thing that I want to ask you because the sort of the AI or the algorithm behind it, to me, is one of the things. Well, maybe it's the big thing that sets Queenly apart from other sort of stores where you put in "I want a dress," whereas this one has. Now, I'm not a woman, so I don't know a lot about this, but
Okay.
necklines and things like this. There's a bit of an algorithm behind it because your co-founder Kathy
Mhm.
used to work at Pinterest, if I'm not mistaken, and has a lot of programming knowledge. So there is a sort of, I don't know if it's an AI, but there's the algorithm built into it can really help you find the perfect dress. And when I
Mhm.
say perfect, it's matched to skin color, neckline, and all other bits and pieces that I'd never considered. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So my co-founder Kathy, so she was a computer science major at UPenn, and she worked at Venmo and spent 4 years at Pinterest as a software engineer. And so she really built the website, our iOS app, or Android, from scratch, like by herself. And what was really important from her that she learned from Pinterest, because they use the same sort of
Mm-hmm.
AI, machine learning algorithms, being able to tailor results, like search results, exactly for the end user. And this is something that we saw lacked in many other fashion tech websites. That even if you search something, they're not exactly accurate. Like you would search MacDougall green dress or something, and let's
Well,
say,
why don't we, Kathy, let's actually do this in real life. So we put in MacDougall green dress and we'll see what it comes up with. And then maybe you can give me some other search terms as well. All right, so well, that's a lot of results there already. Bear in mind, guys, this is only in America at the moment,
Mhm.
but that's what comes up for MacDougall Green Dress. So, what's something a bit more interesting, let's say, that we could put in that kind of shows off the Queenly algorithm?
Let's see. So right now we are kind of specifying for there's like designer, color, silhouette, and then we're working on different things like necklines, like let's say halter. But this is definitely still a work in progress that we want to make sure
Sure.
the search accuracy will always improve over time, which is why we're hiring more engineers. But yeah, I mean, these are things that we want to make sure we prioritize when it comes to engineering. Uh, Other websites, I think what we've found was that they would have a lot of spammy results. Like they would have,
Yeah.
I don't know, like a picture of a cat or something, or I'm sure you're familiar with like, online dress resale on other marketplaces are very
Yeah.
spammy and there's a lot of scammers. And there's no real way to guarantee like safety and security when it comes to it. So for us, being able to tailor it to a specific community of pageant women, of women that wants to like help uplift one another with their own dress, is definitely very helpful. But one exciting thing that I would like to share
Mhm.
is that what we're working on right now, what Kathy is working on, is the ability to have visual search. So, have you heard of Google reverse image search?
No, but I think I was reading about this yesterday. It's kind of like it bases it off photos. Is that what it
Yeah.
is?
So you know how you put MacDougall green dress. Imagine if
Yeah.
instead of typing, let's say you find a dress on Instagram or Pinterest and you screenshot it and you upload it onto Queenly instead of typing it out. Because sometimes we don't
Hmm.
know what to type out. Like you said, when
Exactly.
you're not a woman, you don't
I
know
don't know
what
what the terms are, so I don't know what to
exactly.
search for.
Right, yeah. So we're working on being able to have the technology to upload that dress and then match it with specific or similar listings on Queenly that look like the dress. I think the most fun use case that we tell investors is that, when a girl is going to prom or some kind of formal event, most of the time they try to look at celebrities like
Yeah.
Beyonce at the Met Gala or Taylor Swift at the Grammys, and you look at red carpet outfits, but can you imagine if you're, a girl in middle of nowhere, Ohio, wants to look like Beyonce, but she has nowhere to go and doesn't know how to search for it and doesn't have the budget for it. So being able to screenshot that and upload it on Queenly and we'll match her with a dress that will make her look like Beyonce at her event, I think is going to be like life changing.
That's insane. I mean I have a computer science background, so I should understand maybe how that works. But doing it based off photos, that's next level. How far away roughly? Because I mean, development cycles can be months and years. When roughly would you be considering bringing that out to the public? Are we talking months, years?
Months, a couple of months. So the reason why it's a little bit delayed is that we are in the process of filing a patent for it, just because
Oh,
it's a
what?
very like unique and new technology when it comes
Yeah.
to dresses and formal wear. That we want to make sure that we kind of protect our technology in that sense. And so it's ready, like the code is ready. We're just kind
Mm.
of tailoring the accuracy of it, right? And waiting for the patent pending like filing.
Okay, so that's probably a good time to jump off into the startup world. Now, I've been itching to interview more pageantpreneurs. I call them people who have one foot in pageantry and the other foot
That's
in
a great
entrepreneurship.
term.
Well,
Did you make that up,
I might be
pageantpreneur?
able to patent that one. And I mean this with all due respect. Very often, when someone says they're an entrepreneur, it's they've started up an Instagram account, and if that's where you have to start, that's where you start. You guys, though, and I do want to bring this up, and this is actually the first page I had up when I was looking at. I'd almost call you guys. It's similar to like Facebook back in the day, like it's a Silicon Valley tech startup. When I was looking at some of the people that you've had back you, and even Kathy, having worked at Pinterest, and you have people backing you from Uber, and I think it was a founder or co-founder of Venmo. It just it blows my mind. I mean, this is genuine startup territory. You guys are filing for a patent, which is not the easiest thing in the
No,
world
it's
to
not.
do. It's not the cheapest thing in the world to do. So you've obviously raised a good amount of, I guess you would call it seed funding or venture capital.
Mhm.
Can you, I guess, first up, before we go into that, can you give us a story behind how you met Kathy? Because obviously, you two, you bring the pageant knowledge, she brings all the programming knowledge, which
Yeah.
blows my mind. How did you meet Kathy in the first place?
So in 2014, back and we were both still in college, we actually met at this one, at that time, small tech startup called InfoScout. And we were interns. Yeah, so we were
Oh,
interns in 2014, and that's how we met. And then after the internship, she actually moved back to the East Coast, to finish her degree at Penn and me at Berkeley. And then I didn't know that she moved out here to start working at Pinterest. So back in, I believe, 2018, this is when I started having the itch for the need to build Queenly. And the name
mm,
wasn't Queenly back then; it was like no name. But I wanted to create a platform for women to be able to safely and conveniently buy and sell dresses from each other. Initially, I wanted to start a Facebook group, and then I found out that there's already so many existing like Facebook groups for dress resale. But then I
yeah,
noticed that it was just really messy, not convenient, very manual, and it was just unsafe. There's so many scammers every single day, and
mm,
this really disheartened me. And so I wanted to build something, but I'm not an engineer. At that time, I was at Facebook before I went to Uber. So I think I was still at Facebook. And I had some tech knowledge, but I didn't have, like you said, programming knowledge. So the
yeah.
only female engineer that I knew was Kathy. And so after like almost 4 years, I was like, "Hey, Kathy, how you been? How are you? I would love to catch up and tell you about something that I'm working on." So I went to her at Pinterest, and Pinterest is great because they have the best snacks ever out of all the tech companies. This is the thing about Silicon Valley tech industry is that people care about snacks. It's like such a funny thing. But yeah, and I told her about it, and initially she did not believe in it. She was like, "You don't need an app for this. Like, just start a Facebook group or a Shopify store or something." And simultaneously, she was also experiencing something in her personal life that my friendly advice to her was, "Hey, you should join a pageant." So this is me telling your very stereotypical Silicon Valley engineer who was very nerdy, did not wear makeup, did not dress up to join a pageant. And she thought I was crazy. So I probably asked her to do it maybe 8 times until she finally said yes. And I reassured her that, "Hey, I'll coach you, I'll mentor you, I'll be there every step of the way," which I did. So she joined her very first pageant. And then she ended up winning a very small title. And she loved the experience afterwards. She made so many friends and improved her public speaking, her self-esteem, confidence, and everything. It was like the whole pageant makeover thing. And end of 2018, that's when she was like, "Okay, I see it. I see what you mean now. After being in the industry myself, so I am down to build Queenly with you." And so end of 2018, we started building nights and weekends because we still had a full-time job. And we managed to launch in the App Store, I think January, and the website. So we didn't have Android until later. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's how we met and how we started.
So you launched in the App Store 2019 January.
Yeah, yeah. It was at that time. I think we launched with a private beta of like a couple of hundred of users, just so we're able to, if there's any bugs or crashes, that we could like fix it right away.
How did the conversation go with Kathy? I don't know if there was one. Maybe she just decided this herself. But working at Pinterest, I got to assume, at least in terms of tech startups, that's a pretty secure job, and that's not one you probably go, "Oh, I'm going to leave that to do my own startup." How did that conversation go? Because that takes a lot of guts to leave that job and to do your own startup.
Yeah, so my first intentions was actually not to even recruit her because I knew firsthand that I was like, I don't think I can afford her.
Yeah,
For those that don't know the tech industry, engineers are very expensive. Sometimes their starting base salary out of college is like $200,000. And, I didn't have funding then, I didn't have anything. But I think because I was able to help her personally as a friend, and through that,
mm,
through hanging out, mentoring her, we started building a much deeper bond and connection. And her seeing the problem itself firsthand, it motivated her. And we both actually did not quit our full time jobs and become full time on Queenly until fall of 2019, where we got encouraged by many other founder friends and mentors that we had. But I think both of us, she also shares a similar, I guess, family background as me.
yeah,
So it was like that whole, well, you know what? It's like we could always go back to a corporate desk job. Like,
yeah,
we could always apply.
yep,
There's always going to be a job. It might be hard, but like there's always going to be a job out there. And right now we don't have kids, we don't have a mortgage. There's not a lot for us to risk. And if we're ever going to do anything that is so risky and so nerve wracking as starting your own company, it would be now. And also for her, she already spent 4 years at Pinterest. And as I guess like as an engineer, she wanted more. She wanted to build more,
yeah,
and she felt
got that.
limited. Like she felt bored and limited at Pinterest, even though it was a comfy job that paid a lot.
Yeah.
So that's what she was looking for in terms of that, like the opportunity to build something big and build something that will impact so many people.
Yeah, I understand that itch very well. I think it's an entrepreneurial sort of trait that once you're settled and everything has kind of been done already and you're just maybe tweaking a few things, you get that itch to start something new. So Queenly obviously was something completely different. So I can certainly understand why that would have been attractive. I didn't realize that you guys had only like launched, or we only started Queenly full time in the fall of 2019. So you guys have only been operational less than 2 years. And I got to say, in the middle of that, you had something called Corona. I believe you would have heard of that, which when you're doing something that sells pageant dresses and
Oh
there
my
ain't no
goodness.
pageants, that's perfect timing for, for you.
Great
So
timing.
can
Yeah.
you walk us through, I don't know, what has it been like the last 2 years? And you've had a global pandemic in the middle of it, and yet here you are still standing. What has the journey been like?
Not the easiest, but we definitely weathered one of the biggest storms any businesses could ever experience. So we quit our full-time jobs, dedicated ourselves 100% to Queenly fall 2019. And that's when we were encouraged by our friends who previously started other startup companies before
Mm,
to fundraise. So the biggest thing about the startup industry is fundraising. As a CEO, as a founder, that's something that you have to learn. It's different than if you wanted to start a small business, like a small coffee shop or small boutique store, which is an LLC. For us, we're a corporation because the whole idea of a startup is that you're going to be a unicorn, like a $1 billion company, like Facebook, Airbnb,
yeah,
Uber, right? And so you have to rely on outside investment money in order to grow. Um, so we started fundraising October, November, December, which is the worst time to fundraise is December because all of the investors are on vacation somewhere
Christmas.
in the
Yeah.
Maldives or Tahiti. Like it's just, yeah. So that was just not great. No one was responding to me. We finally closed it's called a pre-seed round in February of 2020. And that was $500,000 to start off with in order to help us grow, like scale our marketing and hire some people. And then March hit the whole, hey, global
Oh
pandemic.
no.
So here I am, my first time fundraising, telling all these investors that, hey, give me money and I'm going to grow your money. I'm going to grow this business. And then boom, no events. Um, Definitely March and April was a huge toll on us. And not just a business, but as a founder, it was a huge mental and emotional toll on us.
Yeah.
And I definitely hit some kind of depression then, because I felt so hopeless, because this was something that I couldn't control. Everything else within my business I had control over, right? But this one, everyone was suffering. How can I say anything? How can I complain when every single other business out there is suffering and dying? I think after this bump that we had, we were like, okay, we got to shake it off and see what we can do. One, we can't push demand right now because it's not going to happen and it's tone deaf. So let's focus on acquiring the largest supply of formal wear that anyone has ever seen. So we did a lot of seller initiative ads, marketing, because a lot more women were working from home and they had more time to clean out their closets and, post their listings up. So that's one great thing. And then what we actually did was we launched this thing called Queenly Partners. Now, Queenly Partners is basically enabling small business owners such as designers and boutique store owners that sell prom dresses, pageant dresses, quinceañera dresses to upload their offline inventory onto Queenly. Now, for the longest time, the formal wear industry has been very traditional, and majority of it just offline in brick and mortars. And so, I actually tried to reach out before COVID, but everyone was like, no, we don't sell online. We're strictly brick and mortar. Like every single one of them told me that. And I was just like, okay, but we're not charging anything. Like we're trying to help you. But it didn't quite hit them that the need to go online was more urgent than ever before until COVID hit. So once I started reaching out, our first partner was actually Vienna Prom. He's amazing for giving us a chance. And so it was basically a way for us to now have brand new inventory direct from the warehouse, direct from all these boutique stores to provide more options for our users, our buyers. And so that's what we did. Now we've exceeded the formal dress inventory of Macy's, Rent the Runway, Nordstrom, because we opened it up, right? We're like, hey, all the women that have dresses in their closets, upload it, sell it. And all the boutique stores, upload it, sell it onto Queenly. Because it's like, everything here is formal wear. So that's that. And then slowly but surely, it started picking up where people still had virtual proms, virtual pageants, and even like small get-togethers to do their proms. And what we saw last year was also the rise of content creation through TikTok, Instagram. And we saw that a lot more women, specifically Gen Zers, were buying dresses to glam up at home to create TikTok videos. So because of a lot of combination of all these things, we still managed to survive and grow. I guess weather the COVID storm.
That's amazing, and I love the way that you pivoted to look for supply rather than demand, because as you said, it would have been tone deaf, and I absolutely agree. When people are dying, you don't want to be telling them they should hire a dress. But the supply is so important, because if you think of something like Uber or Uber Eats, the reason it works is because when you ask for the service, it's immediately available. And I got to imagine that for you guys, it's the same thing. If I go onto Queenly and look for a blue Giovanni dress and I put it in and there are no results, or the results are very poor or scammy, as you said before, then I may never use your app again. I may never give you guys a second chance. So securing that supply must have been absolutely critical for you and the vision of what Queenly is going to be.
Yes, definitely. I think it was the same for even Airbnb, because why would you use their products if you're like searching different, travel destinations in the world, and you come up with one result? I think supply and the options is definitely very crucial.
And I just want to quickly touch on the mental health, because I'm cognizant of your time. Mental health as an entrepreneur, as a Silicon startup founder, I mean, it boggles my mind, because you're in a position where everyone is relying on you. So if you lose it, everyone else is going, oh my God, abandon ship sort of thing. So how did you manage to get through that time when you said you were depressed? and it was just only about a year ago. What was that like trying to make it through? Did you have to make it through alone? Were there certain key people that you could rely on? What was that like?
It was definitely very, very difficult. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And in the beginning, I did think about that. I'm like, I'm a CEO, like I can't show weaknesses because
Mm,
then my co-founder, my team will like lose motivation. And I have to fake it till I make it and just like, but I started to realize that if I'm, that erodes my own mental health, and having to put up this fake front of I'm fine, I'm great, I'm confident, etc., uh, is just kind of depleting me. And if I'm depleted, how can I give it my 100% for the business? And what actually me and Kathy have established as a co-founder relationship is that we want to be different than what is, I guess, stereotypical supposed to be like. We want to be very vulnerable. We wanted to be very open and communicative with each other because, yeah, I mean, we're in this together. It's almost like a marriage, right? For us together to be on this.
yeah.
And I think that so many leaders out there should, I guess, adapt to being like this, because there's so many leaders that fall into depression. There are so many leaders that go like, I don't know, suicide or get burnt out or something because they think that they have to carry the burden by themselves. And this is something that I'm still constantly learning because I've been so independent for so long that I'm not used to asking for help. But I think it's just truly important that this day and age that we lead with vulnerability and transparency, and that we prioritize your company's, like your team's mental and emotional health.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially after 2020. Trisha, the reason I've been so keen to interview entrepreneurs and pageant participants is I think there's a lot of crossover. So just for my own point of view, because a lot of people get very nervous about pageant interview, and a lot of queens have reached out to me. They don't know how to raise funds or raise funds for their advocacy for their platform. Okay. Now, just coming from your perspective, where you've raised seed funding from some incredibly big names such as Uber and Venmo, and you've talked to them, you've interviewed with them, and obviously you've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, not for an advocacy, but it's still raising money. So in terms of if you were to go into another pageant, would you find the interview section or the fundraising section at all difficult? And if not, like what sort of advice would you have?
Definitely a lot less difficult than in the beginning. Interviews before were difficult because, to be honest, because I didn't fully know myself yet. I don't really necessarily think that it's solely just confidence, but I think the clarity of knowing who you are, your purpose, your passion, where you want to go, just like being so confident in yourself and what you've done for yourself, helps a lot. Before, when I didn't know what the heck I was doing, I was in college. I was actually a political science major, so I thought I was going to work for the UN and all these things.
You used that degree, haven't you?
Yeah. And so answering pageant questions were almost like futile because they're asking me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or like, what do you want to do with this? And I was giving, like, I wouldn't say fake answers, but they're like empty answers, right?
Yeah.
And I think most pageant girls think that you just have to give like the most polished answer, and that's great. But I think right now it's so important to have the kind of like genuine, real answer that comes from the heart. And I know that sounds really cliche, but because if you know yourself and what you're doing, what you set out to do, where you're heading, these answers are a piece of cake. You're just like, okay, I know who I am. Like I know what to do.
Yep.
So that's how it's improved. Fundraising, that's a whole different, I would say that's a different ball game right there. That was really hard for me in the beginning because I have this very complicated relationship with money, I would say. I grew up with a mom who had a very severe gambling addiction. And so for
Mhm.
me, I never wanted to borrow money from anyone. I never wanted to take out loans because I was so traumatized by that. And when I joined pageants, they're like, look for sponsors, ask for money. And I'm just like, I don't know, I don't want to.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that was hard. And there were moments where I approached the pageant organizer myself and I'm like, hey, I can't do it. And so there were a couple of times where they're like, okay, like we'll waive it for you or something. But I was just very genuine with them saying like, this is why, and I can't do it. Like, and most of them, they say like, ask your friends and family, but I don't have a big family like most people. So
Yeah.
that's why fundraising for a startup, that is definitely, I would say 100 times more brutal. Just because,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, most investors I talk to and that anyone will ever talk to are going to be predominantly male investors who, for my business, know nothing about pageants, know nothing about dresses, about women's fashions. And so they already have this certain like biases, like gender bias and like whatever, stereotypical bias against what you're building and your own capability. And I received so many no's, and so many doors shut in my face. And in the beginning, I really took it to heart because Queenly is my baby. Like I'm
Yeah.
so passionate about it. And every single investor telling me that it's not going to work, like telling me that this market is too small, is too niche, that it's just not worth investing in. But then my mindset changed when I stopped thinking about it as like I'm begging them for money or asking them for money. But instead, I saw it as exactly what it was, where it's a transaction that they are going to invest in me because of my potential to make this company $1 billion business one day, and that I'm doing them a favor. So I know that sounds very like cocky, but in a way that helped me gain more confidence at the negotiating table with VCs and investors, because I'm like, it's true. These VCs and investors have never started a company before. They don't know what it's like to be a founder. They don't know what it's like to do all of these like, hands-on work that I'm doing because they're just on the finance side.
Yeah.
And so they actually need founders like me, like founders like Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates,
Mm.
to build a company for them that they will never be able to build in order for them to expand their money, to grow their money.
Yeah.
And so applying that onto pageants, I would say, it's not exactly the same because you want these businesses to sponsor you, because they want to genuinely support you as a young woman,
Yeah. Yeah.
thriving, right? But I guess in a sense, you can also play it into like the business angle where, let's say it's like a local accessories shop, right, in Kansas, and I'm trying to compete for Miss Kansas USA, and I have to pitch the possibilities of their business expanding and me bringing more marketing, bringing more revenue for
Exactly.
them, exposure,
Yeah.
in order for them to invest in me. Because I'm like, hey, you only have to give me what, like $200 or whatever it may be, but I may be able to bring you, customers that will give you $1,000, right? So it's like
Exactly.
thinking about that in that sense might help a lot of women get over that, I guess, that fear of
Yeah.
fundraising for sponsors.
Well, I think it's really interesting. You mentioned that your mindset shifted from this idea that you were begging for money and more to a value add for them, like an opportunity for them. Because a lot of the girls that I work with, they do have that mindset of, oh, I'm begging for money. But I keep telling them, well, you have to tell them what value you're going to add to their business, because then they're much more likely to jump on board rather than just going around saying, please give me money, please give me money, please give me money for no reason. You mentioned also, can we just talk about rejection? Because this is another massive thing, not just for women, it's for men as well, but women in the pageant industry, young women, and let's say they go to get sponsorship, they get rejected 5 times, 10 times, let's say they don't win their pageant. Can you just give me some thoughts on rejection? Because going into the entrepreneurial world, into Silicon Valley with these people who are pitched 1 billion times a day and probably say no to 99.999%.
That sounds about right.
How? Well, no, and that's not even exaggeration. I mean, with all due respect,
Yeah.
those people, they get pitched so often with things that probably just would never work. They're going to be brutal. You think some people watching will think pageant judges can be brutal. I don't think that's going to be anything compared to what you face. So can you just give us some ideas on rejection and how your attitude to rejection, in inverted commas, has changed over the last 2-3 years?
Yeah, so I think part of it, I actually drew from my pageant experience, where I always saw losing a pageant as a learning opportunity. Of course, I was like heartbroken. It still hurts, but I would always try to remind myself to shake it off, because it's the whole concept of different night, different judges, different girl, different outcome, right? And these are external factors that we can't control. We can control how we present ourselves to the best possible way, but at the end of the day, we're presenting to human beings with human emotions and human biases. And that's something that there's no formula, there's no code, there's no equation, right? You can't figure it out. And so when I first started fundraising and pitching to all of these like big VC funds who have literally hundreds of millions of dollars, and that have invested in big companies like Facebook, Uber, and Pinterest, it was definitely very intimidating. And the difference was striking when I first started pitching to like how I pitch now, because before I did feel the whole I'm begging for money. I don't know if I can do this. I've never started a business before. And it's almost as if every sentence you could hear that question mark at the end of my,
well, the question talking in Australia, where every sentence you end going up because you're not sure of yourself.
Yeah, exactly that. I can confidently say that I think I've pitched to at least over 100 investors since fundraising. And it was definitely, it's so time consuming and so exhausting, because when we actually were raising our seed round from, I believe it was March to May of this year, I was trying to raise 1.5 million. And I stacked it up literally from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It was like back to back 30 minutes or 45 minutes investor calls, and me pitching the same thing. Hi, I'm Trisha, CEO of Queenly, blah, 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 largest marketplace. Give me money. And it was no, right? There were a lot of times where I cried and had, lots of glasses of wine and a bunch of stuff. But then I thought about the whole pageant mindset, where it's like different judge, different night, different outcome. And I'm just like, different VC, different investors, like
exactly.
So I'm like, there are a lot of investors, especially in Silicon Valley. And because we're experiencing this whole economic tech boom, there's a lot more money, like literally billions of dollars flowing through Silicon Valley. And I see on news articles and social media that so many other founders were getting funded with less traction than us and less, it's called founder market fit, where it's like, there are, I don't know, white male founders that are trying to tackle like plus size women's fashion, or even there was this one ridiculous one, which I am so infuriated about, it was 2 or 3 white male founders who started a women's birth control startup with no medical experience, nothing. And they still managed to raise like tens of millions of dollars, right? So I'm like, what the heck? Like, I live and breathe my company, and we actually have tens of thousands of users. We have revenue. We have everything. So let me take that into account. Like, this investor might not see it, but the next one might. And the thing is, it's just a numbers game. Like sales, pitching, fundraising is sales. And it's a numbers game. So it's almost like quantity over quality thing. And so I was like, there is an investor out there that will see our vision, that will recognize our hard work, and that will match what we're looking for, and they will say yes. And so I kept ingraining that in me, because rejection is such a tough pill to swallow. But for me to just remind myself, it takes a lot of self-awareness and self-motivation, which is hard. It's not easy. But once you get there, to be able to motivate yourself to like, hey, pick yourself back up. Like, you know what? Like, there's someone out there that's going to believe in you. Like, there's someone out there. And I did. And I found them. And to this date, we ended up raising over $3 million, which is more money than I could ever imagine before. Like, I've never had, I remember seeing the money go into our company bank account, and I'm just like, I've never seen this many zeros in my bank account before. I've always been broke. So that was incredible. And I'm just very proud that we were able to do that, not just for ourselves, but for the whole female founder community. So fun fact, as of 2020, only, I think, 2.3% of venture capital funding went to female founders, meaning 97% went to male founders. And this is just such
that is very lopsided.
Very disappointing number. It actually decreased from 2019 to 2020. 2019, it was 2.8%. Right. So this was so sad for me to hear, because I'm like, there's so many capable female entrepreneurs out there that are going bankrupt, closing their businesses because they can't fundraise, because investors won't give them money, and the numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah, that's look, Trisha, I'm cognizant of your time. We've only got 3 minutes left. So, I mean, there are so many other questions and conversations I want to have with you, but I want to be respectful of your time. So, thank you so much for coming on and telling us a little bit of your story. And I really hope a lot of people watching this can take some inspiration, not just for the pageant world, but also for becoming female founders themselves, even if it's not a giant tech startup, just a small business in general, because I think the future, I mean, they say the future is female. I think the future is also going to be very entrepreneurial. I mean, we saw that through 2020. So many of the big companies really struggled to pivot because they're too big. And a lot of other companies actually did very well during 2020. For example, Amazon. Amazon's not exactly a small business.
Not anymore.
No, but he started small as well. So look, thank you so much for coming on, Trisha.
Oh, thank you. It was definitely a fun conversation. I love being able to share my experience in order to help other people. And I'm always an open book to anyone, because I know what it's like to start out and people closing their doors on you. And I'm always open to everyone, especially female entrepreneurs that are female pageant girls, anyone. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so we'll leave it there. Trisha, I'll keep you on the line for just a second whilst I hang up with the audience, so don't go anywhere. Thank you to everyone for watching, whether it's live or on the replay. Go follow on Instagram at Queenly App, and if you're in the US, then definitely go and download it and check it out. Yes. And we will speak to you next time. Thanks for watching. Just a reminder to you entrepreneurial types to come and join us at our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/The Pageant Boss. I'll see you inside and see you in the next episode.